Hi, I'm Dan Palermo.
And I'm Mike Palermo.
What we decided to do is do kind of like a half review, and given our experience writing and editing scripts, also give kind of notes on a movie on what we would change to make it more entertaining. So the first movie that we started with was last night we watched Kidnapping Mr. Heineken, or Kidnapping
Freddie
Heineken.
Yeah.
And I think there are even more names depending on what territory you're watching it
On
in.
Netflix, I think it's like the Heineken heist, maybe even. I don't know.
So we chose it specifically because it is on Netflix, and that's probably what we'll continue to do, so that people can go and watch the movie themselves, and kind of see what we're talking about if they haven't seen it already.
Right. If you should have seen it by now, because there's probably going to be massive spoilers.
Yeah.
All the time.
What I will say right off the top is that it was a pretty good movie. In terms of entertainment value, I gave it a 7.8 out of 10.
I just gave it 7.5. I'm not going to mix with.
Simply
I'm not going to go to points.
Simply because Mike likes round numbers.
I like round numbers. We'll be nitpicking. I feel like any points that we make for this movie specifically, we're going to be nitpicking more than the junk that's out there as well. Like
we already said, it was a pretty entertaining movie. There was definitely a part where we both agreed when they had Mr. Heineken kidnapped Anthony Hopkins, who did awesome. He was probably the best one in the movie, in my opinion.
But he's barely in it too.
But he's barely in it. When they kidnapped him, there was a lot of waiting around. It was basically just back and forth between these characters getting stressed out about not getting paid right away.
Which is so funny because one of the things that I really liked was that I did feel tension on the police chase side. Like, oh man, it's like they could get caught.
Yeah.
And they try and like added in false tension between the group, and I was just like, that's useless to me.
Yeah.
My whole thing was I felt that there was a stagnation with that, and also prior to them sort of getting the ball rolling, I would have focused more on explaining how they got into the dire straits of their situation.
Right.
Because the way the movie plays out, it very much kind of just starts with them being like, hey, let's do this. And it's just like what? Like, they don't really, it's like, oh,
hey,
it's right after.
Criminals.
Yeah, it's like right after.
Criminal, or you're basically gambling, right. Your liberty against things.
I like that speech though.
I mean, it's a great speech, but as a viewer watching these guys,
it's like you have nothing to like.
Yeah, it's like they just got turned down for a loan, so I guess their business is going under, and it's like
people like do that all the time, and they don't.
And they don't bankruptcy,
right.
And like declaring liberty against even if it's money or whatever the outcome is of your crime is like a huge wager.
Right. And they had made it seem like it was like nothing.
Yeah.
It's literally a New Year's resolution almost, where they're just like, you know what, fuck it, let's just kidnap the richest dude in Amsterdam or whatever.
Right. And these are like characters that they're set up at the start of the movie so that you're like on their side.
Right.
But at that point it's like I still am, like they're still likable characters, but now their logic is
slightly flawed for getting where they were going. Yeah, I feel like if they had just explained that a little bit better, because they did kind of diddle daddle in like the first 20 minutes. There's like a bit of like, it's like showing like personal stuff rather than showing situational stuff, or that might be not what I'm thinking.
But even still, the personal stuff. So they get turned down for their loan. They go into their building. One of these guys own the building.
Right. That was like another kind of like problem I had. And see, this is kind of like the thing with the movie. The movie's based on a true story, so I don't know how much of it is like Hollywoodized and how much of it is like fact. But I definitely was just kind of like, whoa, like before you turn to crime so quickly as they did, you'd be doing other shit. Like you'd be trying to get your building renoed and rented.
Right.
And that's kind of like something that I definitely would have explored. I certainly wouldn't have left it unexplained. If I was going to leave it unexplained like they did, I would have just left it out.
Yeah. Or just even like you could do one line of dialogue to say why it couldn't
Yeah, like
why it couldn't be done, which they kind of did. You know, they said, you know, once people who live in the building change the locks, it's going to be like illegal almost to force them out. Which,
right. Like, okay, so with that thing specifically, it's like, oh, once they change the locks, you legally can't do it. Then they go in and they kick everyone out.
Yeah, like
and then
they go in and they're
that's
like
it.
fighting.
That's the end of it.
They're
and
like
that's
fighting
just like,
the
okay,
people
cool.
out. And then, well, yeah, that's all they.
And that's kind of why I was like, okay, well, you kick them out. Now you can rent. Like, I was totally like, oh, okay, cool. They're going to try and rent it, and then it's going to fail. And then they're going to turn to crime. But it was just like, nope. It's just like, all right, fuck, it's New Year's. Let's do this year.
Yeah.
Which is just like kind of ghetto.
Yeah, which was, that was ridiculous. Well, just kind of like how you were talking about personal things. I was actually like, one, you could make their situation really crappy.
Yeah, like dire.
You know, they could get rejected by the loan. The building, you know, really hype that up at how crappy that is.
Right.
That they can't, like, make it seem like it is truly impossible, which would piss anybody off.
Oh, yeah.
And
Like,
get
you
us
get
on
their
their
side
like,
way more.
Like, I'd love to see them, like, trying to kick somebody out, and then the lawyer, like, shutting it down. And,
right.
like, that
or like
lawyer
the cops
being a
arresting
complete...
them instead of the squatters.
Yeah, and then you could still do personal things too, even to pump it up even more.
I mean,
like,
they did personal things. She got pregnant.
I know,
and
like,
stuff
but
like
that's
that.
the thing. Like Jim Sturgis, when his wife got pregnant, he's like super happy. But what about like going the other way and like maybe having him happy in front of her, but also showing how stressful that is.
Right.
That
Or like how strapped
they're
he
going
is.
under.
Right.
And yeah, so that was for the setup. That was definitely could have made it much stronger.
Another thing that's like crazy, and again, this would have been based on reality. Again, these are like problems that I had with the story, but I don't know if there are liberties taken or if it's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
But to finance their kidnapping, which cost them a shitload of money, they rob a bank successfully and like get away with it. And it was at least 100,000 whatever euros or whatever it was back in '83 or whatever. And it's just like if you're weathering the storm and you're like a nice person, I would think that you would stop at that point and then use the 100 grand to kind of like weather the storm until business picks up again, or to like again rent that building, or pay lawyers' fees to get everyone out of that building.
Oh man, yeah.
So that's kind
think of that.
yeah, and it's like it's worse too because at the end of the movie, again, it's like you're like, oh man, I feel so bad for these guys being backed into that corner, or at least that's what they were trying to do, like directing and writing wise, that's what they were trying to do. But then it's like in the closing statements or whatever, it's just like, oh yeah, they became like hardcore criminals
like
after serving 10 years
criminals.
or whatever.
And
which
that makes
is, like that's haggard.
Yeah, and see that makes me wonder. Like obviously they're taking liberties. It makes me wonder if in real life these guys were just
full-on criminals.
bad, like full-on criminals.
Right. And that's exactly when I read that. That's exactly what I thought. It kind of undermined the movie, and that's why I was kind of like, "Fuck." I mean,
and that actually makes me wonder, like, really, what's the issue? Like, you know, I understand they're trying to get you on the side of these criminals and like have you root for them, but it's kind of like, well, why can't they just be bad? Why can't it be a movie about like these dudes being bad and like,
or like being bad and when they're together kidnapping, but then trying to like front. Like trying to be nice in front of family, friends, and stuff like that. Oh yeah, no, we're just busy working.
Yeah, like there are so many like criminals and freaking like the Godfather, any of those. It's like, okay, this is a bad person, but you're still like
on their side.
Yeah, totally. On their side,
or
basically.
Totally interested in their story.
And interested in the story. One of the quick things that I was just annoyed by when watching. So Sam Worthington and Mark Van Ewan, their characters, they're both a little bit. They seem to be the two that are like willing to go the whole way,
right?
I mean, like by killing Mr. Heineken, and but then at the same time, like those two butt heads, and they're both the craziest of the group, and they're just like
those two butt heads.
I just spat real nice. Those two butt heads.
Those two butt heads,
and they're the craziest of the group, and they basically try to get everybody to ditch. Not ditch, but they're like, man, like he's crazy, like constantly.
They're basically like the same character, like the same problem.
Exactly. Why doesn't the rest of the group, who seem pretty sane,
pretty calm under the circumstances, and just kind of like get rid of like the two instigators of friend issues?
Right. And
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
simple.
I agree.
I mean, that's a simple thing. Just make one of them
Right.
nuts.
Right. Because that was like false tension. That was a cause for false tension.
Right.
After they've kidnapped Heineken. It's kind of just like, okay, I want to know, like, the police are like hot on their heels,
Right.
you know, or I want to know if that is happening. I don't care for intergroup bickering.
I mean, to an extent, I think that is good to have the stresses within the group of like what, because it's true. Like if it's 3 weeks, they gave the police a deadline to pay the thing. It's like, yeah, you probably start making stories in your head like, oh crap, like
They're on to us.
They're on to us. Yeah, exactly. At the end of the movie, one of the notes they put up is that the police were given an anonymous tip, which basically got them caught.
Oh yeah, it's like straight up did.
So it was basically like, and now the movie's pointless.
Right, and that's probably why they couldn't show that side of it.
Right, but the thing that I was thinking was like, I'm sure they took liberties.
Right.
With these characters, and so I feel like they could take liberties on the police side to tell that side of the story as well. That would have also solved the issue that we were talking about earlier, where after they've kidnapped this guy, there's a lot of like meaningless or not meaningless, but repetitive tension. The police not paying. Well, it'd be sweet if they wrote in a whole police kind of story arc,
right?
So that they could cut back and forth. So we see the police struggle with trying to find them or getting through the loopholes that they need to get through after they've gotten this tip. So, and that's going to add tension for the audience too, because you're thinking about like, how are they going to get out of this with the police knowing?
Right.
I actually wrote down like what like questions I would have had about the cops. It's like, why didn't they pay on time? Like that would have been a hard decision.
Yeah.
Which we could have seen.
Right.
Or like what was going on within the Heineken company or group,
like
or
family.
who's decided? Yeah, like family. Who was it that made that decision to pay?
Oh yeah, because so the first deadline runs out, nothing happens, and then Heineken is like, oh, I'll write a personal note saying that I want you to, just pay it. Mm-hmm. So and then they give him that. Yeah, it's just like what? What's happening behind the scenes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and it'd be interesting to know exactly what they were thinking from a writing perspective and directing perspective for why they stayed on
just the
group. So, I think those were the two notes, which isn't much, and we got into quite a bit of detail about it, but like not much for.
And again, this is like
nitpicking.
Because at the end of the day, it's like I actually enjoyed it, which is good.
Totally.
In terms of entertainment, I mean.
Yeah, so I think that's it for us on the kidnapping of Mr. Heineken, and yeah, we'll be watching something on Netflix soon, and we'll come out with another one.